is Robert Kinney. I currently live in Hamden, Connecticut, but I've lived in New Haven for approximately almost 16, 17 years, I would say. And I currently work as the Outreach Services Librarian for the Connecticut State Library, and I'm glad to be here.
Great, thank you. So, Robert, I know that you take long road trips. You go to visit family in Virginia. How do you prepare for a long road trip like that, and where do you stop when you get on the road?
Well, I think one of the first things that we do is that we look at, I guess, gassing up the vehicles because we always drive. One of the things that we like to do is put enough gas in the car, just enough to get us to New Jersey, and therefore, because the gas prices are cheaper in New Jersey, so roughly around about the first or second rest stop on the Jersey Turnpike, that's when we'll gas up for the duration of the ride. And so normally we like to drive at night. That avoids traffic, but there have been times when we've driven during the day and we've come into a lot of traffic, especially during the summer. But nighttime driving is preferred, and if we're tired, then we'll have to take shifts because it's about an 8-hour drive normally when we go to Newport News or Virginia Beach, that area.
And then, is that a straight through drive? Do you always try to calculate it so you don't stop anywhere overnight? You just go straight through?
It's usually a straight through. Yeah, we usually drive straight through. Try to get there as fast as possible, and then come back as fast as possible. There are times when if we have more time, have broken up the trip where we'll stop in the D.C. area and stay with relatives, and then from there, well, it's about 2 hours from there.
And then, did you do any sightseeing with your family if you stopped in D.C., for example?
Yeah, I could, because a lot of my family, at least my wife's side, it's always kind of fun introducing them to different things in the D.C. area. I grew up there, so whenever I have a moment, I'll definitely take them throughout D.C. and show them different areas, different Lincoln Memorial, and just different parts in Washington. So definitely.
That's kind of funny because usually they always say if you live somewhere, you never go see the local attractions.
Yeah.
It's the out-of-state visitors that take you to the local attractions.
Yeah, that's so true, because it's funny, when I lived there, I mean, all that stuff was just always there. And then when you move away, you take more, I guess, notice of it by being away from the area. And so it's always, I guess, a sense of fulfillment bringing your family back there and showing them different areas where you grew up and different points of interest in the town.
Now, a lot of people talk about special places that they have to stop at because of the food, or because they're going somewhere that they're familiar with and they're really looking forward to certain kind of food. Now, you're going further south. Are there special foods that you look forward to?
Yeah, there are two places that we usually stop. One in the D.C. area, there's this place that's called, well, I guess 20 years ago it was a bus, where these guys would basically cook out of the back of a bus, and they would, this was along Indian Head Highway, in the Suitland, in the Indian Highway View area of Maryland. But we would stop there and definitely get food. And then if we're going further south, Florida, because my wife's family is from Georgia, there's a spot in Jacksonville that's well known called Jenkins Barbecue. Mm-hmm. And that's a place where we always have to go when we're in that area to get food. And even when we're coming back, they sell these huge jugs of barbecue sauce that we'll load up, barbecue sauce and all that stuff to come back home.
Do you think, is there a certain line that you get, it has to be past Delaware, but is there a line where you get more homemade biscuits or more southern cooking?
Yeah, I would say probably Maryland. Right around Maryland in the D.C. area, I would say you probably would get a good feel of homemade cooking. Once you cross the Maryland line and you start getting into Delaware and New Jersey, I guess you kind of lose it.
Now, for your family, how do you pack the car, and are there certain things rituals or traditions that you have to take certain items with you?
Well, yeah, definitely pack. We try to pack as light as possible, but that never always seems to be the case. We always take extra clothes, just in preparation of staying longer. We usually pack no more than 3 or 4 suitcases, but we to pack a couple pairs of shorts, long clothes, well, heavy clothes, just in case the weather turns cold or whatever the season is. But yeah, we usually pack about 3 suitcases per trip and try to keep it that way. But for some reason, we always end up coming back with more, because when you go home, people want to give you stuff, or you want to take stuff home, and you end up having more stuff than you leave your original home.
I know that feeling. Now, is it just you and your wife?
Yes, it's me and my wife. Our kids are somewhat grown, but they
Yep.
would travel with us when we were going back and forth to Virginia.
Now, when they were small enough, now everybody, kids in general, are glued to their phone the whole trip. But what kind of games or amusements? How would you just count on the fact that you're driving at night? They're going to be asleep, or did you have to pack snacks and games for them?
We would. I know there's a couple occasions we would sometimes sing songs. Sometimes we would, with my son. I remember him being younger. We would take it as an opportunity for him to learn different things like states and capitals and different things like that. So we kind of play those games. And then a lot of times it's just conversation. We would have conversation just about different things that was going on in the world and so on. And one thing that was really amazing, a couple times, and we didn't notice until we actually arrived at our destination, that we spent 8 hours in the car with no radio. I was like, wow. That was pretty interesting.
This sounds like a really wonderful family building experience.
Yeah.
You kind of have to. You're in a car, and it's a little different than flying, where you can kind of put headphones on. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you really got to know each other and really discuss things.
Yeah.
I think that's a great advantage to a road trip.
Yeah.
So, if you, how would you compare road trips and air travel?
Air travel, I think air travel it's one thing, of course, is the time. You in the air, and there seems to be, for me, a little bit more anxiety, because once you're in the air, you know that you're going to get there at a certain time, and you're going to land in 2 or 3 hours, and it's kind of like a gap missing, because I'm so used to driving on the road. Mm-hmm. When you're traveling in the car, you know that it's going to take this amount of time, so there's more. I don't know, it seems like it's more of a, for me, relaxed time, because you know that it's going to take some time, and you know that you're going to have to figure out how to stay awake and all these other things to try to endure the trip. So it's a little different, because I guess because you're doing the driving too, and so it takes a little bit more to prepare to drive, as opposed to hopping on a plane and flying.
And are there any, one last question, are there any, I would call them kind of staycation or in-state places that you want your wife like to drive to, or overnight weekend kind of places, now that you're an empty nester?
I can't think of anything in the state, staycations. In the state, usually when we get away, we usually try to get out of the state. One of our favorite places that we would like to, we've gone there once, but like to get away from, is Harper's Ferry in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, and again it's in the D.C., somewhat in the D.C. area, but that's one of our places we'd like to get away every now and then.
Do you have a nice bed and breakfast or an inn or Airbnb? Or a little of both of all those?
No, there is a place in the D.C. area where it's just a regular Marriott in the Falls Church area, that whenever we go to the area, that's where we stay. And they have a nice little continental breakfast in the morning, but that's where we usually end up staying.